That's breaking news coming in on your screen. The OPEC meeting that we have been awaiting, the markets have been awaiting, and every asset class would be watching out for, has come out with no policy change in any sense. They say also that there is no ceiling as well onto the output is what they have come out with. Remember, the finer details are still coming in, but this is what we have to start with for you. The OPEC says or maintains a status quo. There is no change in policy in any sense, and there has been no ceiling as well as on expected lines. Remember, we just were talking to so many guests on air, and they said that this is a scenario of a ceiling coming in is something that the OPEC hasn't been working with, even when there was a ceiling. And a ceiling is something that they wouldn't agree on as well, with Iran especially wanting to continue to produce up till their non-sanction levels. Mark To, the research head of Wing Fung Financial Advisory, now joins us on the group on the phone line. Mark, hi. What's your sense? I mean, this is pretty much on the expected lines, but OPEC coming out and maintaining a status quo, blatantly saying that there is no ceiling, no change in policy. What kind of an impact do you see of that coming on the crude oil prices?
Hi. I actually think that the OPEC decision is rather expected and within the market expectation, that there should not be any specific changes on the policy, whether it is about the ceiling or the other supply issues, because we all know that it is a very large issue that determines the interest of different parties, and basically we can see that if there is no changes, they can still keep supplying the oil at the current level. But of course, we can see that based on the last 2 or 3 months, we can see that the oil price had actually risen to such a level that we can see some kind of resistance. But anyway, we can see that it is basically a geopolitical tension plus some kind of new energy issue that determine the supply and demand situation. And I don't think that the OPEC itself, by itself, can solve the problem. We all know that it concerns non-OPEC producing countries, as well as the other interests like the United States and the European interests. And that's why I can see that the best optimal equilibrium could be no policy changes on whether the ceiling on the other issues.
Mark, stay on with us. We'll also get a reaction from Fadel Gheit, Senior Energy Strategist, and he joins us as well on the phone line. Fadel, hi, good to have you as well. What's your initial reaction to this? There is no change in policy, no production ceiling, pretty much on the expected lines. We still are awaiting the finer details here. But where does it take OPEC from here on?
Well, I have given up on OPEC for the last 2 years. They have not been able to really agree on anything, and it is free-for-all. It's a price war. All these countries are basically fighting for their life. They know that the energy world has changed forever because of the shale technology. It's a game changer, and they have dismissed shale for the last 10 years. And it's very, whatever they can do now, it's too little too late. And shale is here to stay because shale is a technology. Shale is not geopolitics. Shale is technology. And technology can get better. It is very difficult to unlearn what you have already learned. The industry, the U.S. shale industry, is going to grow more resilient and will be able to stand low oil price pressure for long periods of time. Industry consolidation will probably start in the second half of this year, and will just create more resilient companies to lower oil prices. So the bottom line here is that OPEC is a market watcher. It's not really a market, cannot control oil prices. And that is going to be the new paradigm. OPEC is irrelevant. It is dysfunctional. It is corrupt. It has to really change its business model. And we have seen some comment by a young Saudi prince that you're going to transform the economy away from oil. Good luck. This is something that is unlikely to happen, given the culture, given the history of these countries. I don't really have any sympathy for them. I don't expect them to succeed in doing anything. And the market will be better off without OPEC than with OPEC. OPEC become more nuisance, not helpful at all, and will just continue to create volatility until we see the end of OPEC as we know it and its impact on crude oil prices.
Fadel, also, as you pointed out, I mean, OPEC members are not on the same page. The discipline, of course, has been a big question mark, and the non-OPEC producers really seem to be taking it in their own hands right now. As the statements still keep coming in, the OPEC members have failed to agree on output limits, and they're banking on already rising prices. I mean, how would you see that, and how much more do you see the prices rising from here? I mean, of course, 80% of a gain in the crude oil prices has taken some pressure off OPEC. Do you see them getting more complacent here on?
Oh, absolutely. There are a couple of things we have to remember. The $40 oil or even $50 oil is insufficient to really meet world demand for oil. We need a lot more investment, if you will, in new projects in order for us to keep production flat, let alone increase production. So on this score, I do believe that the marginal cost of production is in the $60+ range, which means that going forward, oil prices will have to gravitate to a higher level, basically to cover the low or marginal cost, which is $60 or $65. So it's a combination of technology that will enable companies to survive $65 oil. You have to remember, 2 years ago, 80% of shale production would need $80 to break even. Now this number is significantly less. You know, a lot more companies have been able to reduce their cost structure and will be able to make profit at $50 oil, but doesn't mean that all of them will be able to do so. Only the best of the best will be able to do so. So going forward, I think the new normal is going to be in the $65 range. Any price significantly above or significantly below the $65 oil will definitely be corrected, self-correcting mechanism in the market. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. No thanks to OPEC, oil prices have recovered by 80% from their 13-year low of $26 back in February. That is without any agreement or any success of OPEC to do anything meaningful, to impact oil prices. And they are basically watching the market like we are all doing, and very little they can do. Going forward, the swing producer in the world is going to be the U.S. shale industry. It's not going to be Saudi Arabia. It's not going to be OPEC. And they realize that. They realize that they have lost control of oil prices forever. And it's not going to come back because time and technology is not on OPEC's side.
And clearly, we have the crude oil prices reacting to that news. Remember, we started the day on a very soft note, and we did see prices gain up by $50 when Saudi did come out and say that they are taking all the options on the table. But as of now, after this news, we already have seen prices decline by nearly 2% for NYMEX and 1% southwards for Brent as well. Fadel, stay on. Mark, I want to get you in the conversation back. I mean, at $27 a barrel, OPEC did not come out and do anything. At $50 a barrel, there were, of course, almost no chances of them coming out with a policy change in any case. But from here on, what's your sense then? What would you want to watch out for with OPEC going the way they are and the U.S. shale gas on the higher side? Russia, of course, is not a part of it. Iran would continue to pump up production. Are we looking at the oversupply continuing?
Well, I tend to agree with our friend that the new technology of the shale gas or the shale oil, the new technology that we have learned cannot be unlearned. And I think that the overall impact of OPEC's decision for the last 1 to 2 years is really phenomenal, because you know that we all know that oil as an elastic demand commodity, the suppliers should not oversupply and have the price depressed unless they have some kind of strategic consideration that would like to see some kind of new competitor to suffer. But I don't think that kind of competitors will suffer for very long, because once the supply-demand situation come back to some normal situation, we can expect that the new energy, the new kind of technology can still provide services at a profit rather than at a loss. So at this moment, we can all see that some kind of game theoretic decision at at this moment cannot be sustainable. And because of that, I do think that the OPEC decision can only sustain for a very short term because it cut into its own benefits. And because of that, I also agree with our friend that the oil price may rise to a higher level beyond the 50 or even 60 level. And I still think that the overall sentiment and even the momentum is still on the upside.
Mriganka Jaipuriya, Associate Editorial Director for Asia Oil News, now joins us as well. Mriganka, hi, what's your sense? I mean, there are statements now coming in from OPEC that OPEC as a cartel or OPEC should really, steward the oil markets, and that Kuwait minister says that the meeting has been on the positive side. I mean, what do you read in these statements, especially when the OPEC has not come out with any policy change, no production ceiling, nothing?
I don't think anybody was expecting them to come out with a policy change. I think the general wide market expectation was that OPEC would maintain status quo. And in fact, right from the time that ministers started to gather in Vienna, the sense was more that they were going to use this meeting to smoothen out some of their differences and also, close some administrative loose ends, such as the selection of the Secretary General for OPEC. So it hasn't. It's not a surprise really that they have maintained status quo. There was no. I don't think any of them. At least the key ministers did not think it necessary to come up with some sort of a production freeze or a production ceiling, given that they think the market is already balancing and market forces are coming into play.
Well, Indonesia oil minister says that OPEC delegates did not discuss production ceilings at all. But you know what? The OPEC press conference is just about started. Let's listen in if they are saying something, or we'll continue with this discussion.
The conference studied the Secretary General report as well as the report of the Economic Commission Board and various administrative matters. The conference welcomed the Paris Agreement taken at the COP21 meeting in December last year. It's a trust that the challenges related to the environment and climate change are a concern for us all. Member countries are committed to supporting sustainable development and recognize the importance of continually looking to advance the environmental credentials of oil, both in production and use. Having reviewed the oil market outlook for 2000.
All right, so that really is the minutes of the meeting. We'll of course go back again when they're talking more about on what really had the discussion been. As of now, the new statements coming in from the meeting are that Kuwait said that it was a positive meeting. Indonesia oil minister says that they did not discuss the oil ceiling at all. Gabon, of course, has been readmitted as an OPEC member yet again. Remember, it had gone out a couple of decades back, but that admission really comes back into the markets right now. But the big thing is that there has been no change. It wasn't even discussed, is what one of the delegates really seem to be talking about. So the main thing, of course, has been about on how OPEC would go ahead and steward the oil markets. I mean, it really is about keeping the OPEC alive, and that doesn't really seem to be happening. Fadel, as you were pointing out, I mean, that is going to be a very difficult task, because in last couple of meetings from OPEC, we really haven't seen that leadership come out. And this time around as well, while there have been so many statements, it really doesn't give you that sense of confidence going forward. Fadel, hi, the question was to you.
I'm sorry. I've been saying that for a couple of years. OPEC has completely lost its leadership and control of the oil market. As I said before, the traditional swing producer role is no longer in the hands of the Saudis. Saudi Arabia is fighting for its life. It's not going to see eye to eye with the Iranian because of the geopolitical problems. They've been in a fight. The Sunnis and Shias have been in a fight for 1,400 years. It's not going to change. It's not going to get any better. They have a proxy war in Yemen that's going on for the last 20 years, although it had the headlines only in the last 2 years. I don't expect OPEC to do anything positive or negative. Basically, they will continue to hope for higher oil prices. Market forces will prevail. Market forces tell us that oil prices at $20, $30, $40 is not sustainable because it's not going to draw the investment necessary to maintain production at the current level, let alone increase production to meet global demand growth. Demand will continue to grow. But it's going to be at much lower pace because of the climate change, because of the technology, the shale technology, because of switching to other fuel. All of this, the energy efficiency in the economy will continue to improve, and therefore global oil demand growth will taper off, will cool down, and I would not be surprised at all 5-6 years from now that actual global demand will decline because of new technology, because of switching to other fuels, because of efficiency and so forth, and because of the direction that we are taking, countries and around the world, basically to really find a solution for the climate change that is threatening all of us. So OPEC is irrelevant. I've been saying that for a while. OPEC has become a relic. It's still living in the past. They don't have the strategy or the means to deal with the future. It is basically a dark tunnel, and there is no light at the end of the tunnel until or unless OPEC change its strategy to really basically move its economy away from 100% dependent on oil and oil prices. One thing a lot of people don't realize, that given the fact that OPEC population continue to grow, OPEC domestic consumption will continue to increase. A flat production will leave OPEC with fewer barrels to export in the future. So therefore, OPEC will be desperately in need for higher oil prices to make up for the decline in the export volume. So that is unlikely to happen. So therefore, at flat prices and declining production, OPEC is in a lot deeper trouble than anybody can really realize. So longer term, OPEC is in deeper problem than many people think.
And as we talk, the crude oil prices continue to decline below $49 a barrel as we speak, nearly 2% of a decline coming in for that one. And as we've been talking, there are no surprises from that OPEC meeting. It clearly has gone the Doha way, with no outcome really coming in from that, except for some feel-good statements that they seem to be giving. Mark, what's your sense? I mean, even as we have seen oversupply situation, the only plus point really has been about the strong Asian demand.
Well, I think the oversupply situation is not a normal situation for the past 2 years. I think it is more or less a strategic decision. But overall speaking, I tend to think that the new technology as a new form of supply can really compete with it. And because of that, in the very long run, I think that as long as the producers as well as the consumers have a longer time period for them to adjust their production schedules, I think that the people may shift from the consumption of oil to...
Mark, apologies, we'll just come back to you, but the presser really seems to have started and the OPEC SECI and President seem to be talking. Let's just listen and then we'll come back to you.
Let me first give an introduction of where we are and see if we can answer that question to your satisfaction. First of all, we are very happy to have a very good meeting in OPEC today. We had an excellent understanding, not only on the issues we were tackling, but also in the further convincing that OPEC as an organization is a very valuable organization, and we are all behind it. that excellent, successful meeting really considered in details the oil market situation and looked at it in a very responsible manner. Price of oil dropped so significantly over the past, from the peak over the past 2 years or so now, leading to shrinkage, huge shrinkage in investment. So OPEC and maybe a lot of non-OPEC countries and many even consumers are convinced now that a fairer price is required and needed for everybody to, for a reasonable return in such a manner that producers can continue investing. The investment drop has been very significant. And, but the latest trend caused by the fundamentals of the market has shown that oil price started to increase, but this is a trend. We are yet to see that trend to continue in such a manner that it introduces reasonable return to producers, and therefore they can continue injecting and financing projects. Otherwise, the drop is going to be sharper. But with regard to your question, a fair price, I think a fair price, we don't usually define it as in a figure, but a reasonable return in such a manner that we can continue investing.
Yes. Yes.
Concerning the non-OPEC producers, you have any agreement with them? And will it be a challenge for you as OPEC or states to make them abide by any agreement with you or not?
Well, we have close...
One more question related to dollar. U.S. interest may rise within just few weeks. It's a big challenge for you as well.
Well, with non-OPEC countries, we have already established a platform of coordination, and we have a good understanding and good communication between OPEC and non-OPEC, be it on individual basis or OPEC and non-OPEC. And yes, we talk to each other, we listen to the advice of each other, but with regard to the production level, it is evident that the general market share over a number of decades has been to the interest of non-OPEC countries. It seems that over the past few weeks that things have changed, and we can see a drop in the market share, drop in production of non-OPEC, while OPEC production has an increase, and it has also the potential. I hope, sorry.
All right, so that's the president of OPEC really talking about the market share and the communication that they have with non-OPEC countries. The next meeting, of course, is on 30th November is what he said. And he said that the fair price would be where they can start investing. Investment, of course, is a concern which has sharply declined in last many months. But Fadel, Mriganka and Mark, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a sense on what really OPEC has been saying. And thank you so much for watching TV18.